Yo, Amateur Lore here, and it's that time of the year again. March Madness is right around the corner, and I cannot tell y'all enough how excited I am to watch the Gators repeat as national champions. What? Come on, y'all know I'm the Gators' biggest glazer of all time. And I know you know that if our guard play can play how they've been playing to finish the season, Florida's going to be a real problem. Alright, I'll stop with the Gator glaze. So for this video today, we're going to be taking a look at two teams who came out of nowhere to go on some unexpected deep March Madness runs, making program history along the way while doing it. One of these entries I've been meaning to cover for a while now, so I hope you enjoy. If you like the content, be sure to leave a like and a sub, and also comment down below your 4 teams you have making the Final Four this year. I want to see if some of you are as delusional as me. But with that out of the way, let's hop right into the video. Oh boy, here we go. So after watching the Miami Hurricanes football team march all the way to the national championship game this past year, I thought after football season I'd be done with these damn Hurricanes. Amateur Lore really believed he could hide from anything and everything related to the Miami Hurricanes, and that was the plan until I started looking into teams I wanted to cover that went on some incredible March Madness runs. And it just so happened one of the first teams to stumble across my tiny desk was the 2021/22 Miami Hurricanes basketball team. Amateur Lore is a coward, yes, sometimes, especially when he's downtown with his boys sober trying to talk to females. But when it comes to making content, I run from no one. So even with all the disdain I hold for what your program did to my beloved Gators this past football season, I will put that aside to tell the story and cover this Canes basketball team, which at the time was arguably the best basketball team the Miami Hurricanes had ever assembled. Where do we start this video? Well, first I think it's important to give an idea of where Miami basketball was at the time. Prior to the season we're covering today, I don't think it would be a stretch to say Canes basketball was definitely not in the greatest of spaces. As in the past 3 seasons, Miami would fail to make the NCAA tourney, and it wasn't like they were snubbed or close to getting one of the final remaining spots, failing to go over a 500 winning percentage, going 14-18 in 2018, 15-16 in 2019, and in 2020 going 10-17. 2020 was particularly a bad season as Miami would finish with their least amount of wins since all the way back in 1993, when they would only win 7 games. Putting all of that into context, I can't really blame the ACC media for expecting the 2021/22 Miami Hurricanes to be bottom feeders in the great Atlantic Coast Conference. According to ACC.com, the Miami Hurricanes were predicted to finish 12th. There were only 15 teams in the ACC at the time, meaning the team we are covering today, according to the so-called experts, would be lucky to finish the season with a record over 500. As we all know now though, when a team is being covered by me, unless it was my last video I did on Florida and Florida State, then that means more likely than not they exceeded their expectations massively. But while I'm the one telling the story, the Hurricane players are the one who wrote the book. So let's take a look at some of the dudes buying tables at Club Live who made this incredible 2021/22 season possible. Leading the program in his 11th season up to that point, we have to me the best head coach in Miami basketball history, Jim Larrañaga. He's led this program to a couple of elite seasons, but in 2021/2022, at least in the regular season, his squad would be the definition of average, at least according to all of the metrics, ranking 100th in points per game and 214th in points against per game. However, what makes him such a great coach is his ability to get his squad to turn it on at the right time. You don't make 2 Sweet 16s, 1 Elite 8, and a Final Four without being able to get your team to flip the switch. The Hurricanes would have 4 guards putting in a lot of work this year, starting with Charlie Moore, averaging 12 and 2 with the team leading 4.6 assists per game. Next up, we have a name I'm sure some of you will recognize in Isaiah Wong, averaging 15, 4, and 2. Jordan Miller finishing the season averaging 10 points, a team leading 5.9 boards and 1 assist per game. And finally, to round out the guards, the backbone of this team and the star player, Cameron McGusty, averaging a team leading 17.8 points per game with 4 boards and 2 assists. Yes, this team was heavily reliant on guard play, but to make a deep run you always need a brick wall in your front court, and this team had one. Sam Wardenberg, averaging 8, 4, and 2. The Miami Hurricanes would have a slow start to the 2021/22 college basketball season, sitting with a record of 4-3 7 games into the season, with their last game being an ugly loss 96-64 to Alabama in the ESPN Events Invitational. That loss really brought urgency to this Canes program, as they would learn and rail off 8 straight wins to bring their record about a third through the college basketball season at 12-3. While yes, to be fair, the Hurricanes hadn't really taken down anyone, when you compare this start to their previous last 3 seasons, it was night and day. And even though they started off slow, they were back on track to making it to the NCAA tourney for the first time in a couple of seasons. 12-3 is a good record, but everyone knows if you want to make the dance, you're going to need to bag a couple of big-time wins, and so far this season the Canes didn't have any. That would all change in their next game, as they would be traveling to one of the toughest places to play in all of sports, not just basketball, Cameron Indoor Stadium, to match up against the ACC preseason number 2 ranked Duke, the future number 1 overall pick Paulo Banchero, and worst of all, the Cameron Crazies. Duke was favored by nearly 15.5 points in this game. Miami was playing with house money. Nobody expected them to win, which made them very dangerous.
Constantine Popa, give you a name, 7'4" player. They had some good teams, and coached by Leonard Hamilton, now the head coach of Florida State.
There we are, underway at Cameron Indoor.
Is playing at such a high clip for Duke. If you look at his whole body of work early on in this season, he has been the most impressive guy.
Inside to Theo John, goes up strong over a double, battles in and out. Trailing 3 runs and run over the last 4 minutes. Griffin left open for 3.
Griffin with a corner 3.
And with Mark Williams and Theo John off the court, Miami goes for turnovers is 16 to already have 12 and not even be done with the first half.
Really the huge pickup for Miami. This has been playing outstanding ball for them.
Tied at 32.
Chance, opportunity, getting on the offensive glass.
Inside to Williams. There's your more into the lane. Kick out 3, Miller. It's good. Step back 3, Wong. He buries it.
As opposed to traditional post.
Ripped away from Miami again. 3 on 2. Count it. Plus the fact.
Let's see how Miami attacks this.
Moore likes to shoot over it, and he buries it. Arrow tracks down the rebound. Here's Roach in transition, all the way to the rim. Wendell Moore Jr. behind the back, lays it on. Banchero delivers. Poked away. Banchero. Teams out of timeouts for the remainder of regulation. How did that go in? Missed it, but Miller gets the offensive rebound. Miami doesn't have a timeout, but they've got the ball down 1. Into the lane, tough take, Cam McGusty. Here's Keels in traffic, goes up contested, no good. Duke has Miami trying to cling to what would be a 9th straight win. Keels, no good. Miami survives. A statement win for this Hurricanes team.
Damn. Rewatching this game was extremely fun. The Miami Hurricanes played their ass off, and even with being undersized, they would out-tough the number 2 ranked Duke Blue Devils on the road, winning 76-74. You won't ever hear these words coming out of my mouth very often because it rarely ever happens, but in this matchup, Coach K would be out-coached. Duke would turn the ball over 17 times compared to Miami's 5, largely in part due to the genius but risky strategy of switching everything and trapping. I say risky because they were by far the smaller team, but it worked to perfection. You can win the X's and O's battle, but at the end of the day, it comes down to can your players execute. And Miami did, especially guard Charlie Moore, who played one of his best games of the season and one of the biggest, scoring 18 points and making some big shots when the game was starting to wind down, playing a huge role in this big win for the Miami Hurricanes. Now 13-3 on the season, the Hurricanes were in a good position to receive a high seed for the NCAA basketball tourney if they could just keep on winning. While they would keep on winning, the Miami Hurricanes would for sure slow down, going 9-6 in their final 15 games of the regular season, putting their record at 22-9 going into the ACC Tournament. Going into the ACC Tournament, the Miami Hurricanes, while shockingly to me never being ranked at all one time this season, would pretty much be a lock to make the NCAA Tournament regardless of how they perform in the conference tourney. With saying all of that, in their first game against the below-average 13-20 Boston College Eagles, the Canes would play in an unexpected thriller. This game would require an extra quarter going into overtime being tied at 65 all. Overtime was back and forth, with the match being tied at 69 with less than 5 seconds remaining with the ball in the Hurricanes' possession after a missed shot from the Eagles. Charlie Moore would toss a beautiful pass down court to a wide open Jordan Miller, who'd make the layup at the buzzer, winning the game 71-69. A thrilling win, but if Miami wanted to make a deep run in March Madness, they couldn't afford to be playing in games like this against inferior competition. The road to the conference title would get harder, as after taking down Boston College, the next obstacle in the Hurricanes' way would be a familiar foe, the Duke Blue Devils, who were looking for revenge after suffering that loss to Miami earlier in the season. And revenge they would get, defeating Miami 80-76. Miami fought hard and would always keep this game within striking distance, but unlike last time, the Duke Blue Devils were the team to execute down the stretch, sending Miami home early. It must have been a long flight from New York back to Miami. Losing is never fun, especially when you can taste victory. The Miami Hurricanes would have 7 days to hit the lab, rest, and get their bodies back to as close as 100% as they could get. But let's be real, this deep in the season, nobody is 100% truly. The Lords of March Madness, the NCAA committee, would see fit that this 2021/22 Miami Hurricanes basketball team be given the 10th seed for the Big Dance. which in my humble opinion, Tim C just seems a little low. I would have liked to see the squad maybe at like an 8 or a 9. They had a pretty good record with one of the best wins throughout the entire season on the road against number 2 ranked Duke. But once they give you your seed, you can't change it, so 10 it was. And to Greenville, South Carolina, the Canes were off to for their first game of March Madness against the 7th-seeded USC Trojans. It had been a long 5 years since the Miami Hurricanes had won a game in the NCAA Tournament. Would it be 6? Or would the Miami Hurricanes get the shitty reward of winning this ballgame and having to face off against one of the teams favored to win it all, the 2nd-seeded Auburn Tigers? Let's find out.
Yeah, we're ready to get rolling here in Greenville, and the tap comes down, and it's controlled by U.S. Wong over Mobley from the baseline. Get him going. Really impressive. Mobley, who's missed all 4 from the field. Nice pass. Sets up Goodwin. Boy, nice in the dribble drive. Had 27 against the Bruins. There's a lob. Wong. Wow. Wrap, too. Ellis to Peterson. And he bangs home a 3. Miller. Wow, shot. There are 2 swats at the old neighborhood. Nice cut. Underneath and up and in. Floor to start the second half. It's Anderson. And he makes a nice driving basket. Mobley's already hit 1 this half. Give him 2. This for the lead. Yes. How about look at these passes. Wow, dangerous. From the floor, Goodwin has it picked by Miller. And here comes Miami. More racing down the floor. And it's dunked down by Wall. Well, most dangerous right now. Gusty. Tough shot. Got it. All net. Going to be a threat. Back to Moore. Long range 3. It's a beauty. Take exchange. Go to the rim. Peterson's got a good look here. Knocks it down. What a great... With Moore, the great defender on him. Out to Peterson. Can he get a second one here? Yes, he does! Unbelievable. Done this his whole... Puts him up 2. Looking deep. Comes to Peterson. He's got time. Peterson launches an improbable shot. Oh, he banked it. Hit the rim. And it's... Miami's.
For the first time in 5 years, the Miami Hurricanes would win an NCAA Tournament game, taking down the USC Trojans 68-66. The Canes would only shoot 43% from the field and get this 7% from the three-point line compared to the Trojans' 48% and 45% from three-point land. You're probably seeing those numbers and thinking, how did Miami win when they were being outshot by that much, especially from the three-point line? Well, this Hurricanes basketball team would force the Trojans to turn the ball over and get this 18 times to only the Hurricanes 3. That's a huge difference, and that difference would play a huge role in Miami getting this win. But you also need your primetime players to make big plays, and this game was no different, as even with Miami winning the turnover battle, this game would still come down to the wire. But thankfully players like Isaiah Wong and Charlie Moore came to hoop. Isaiah Wong dropping 22 points, which a good majority of those points would come in the first half due to him being in foul trouble and fouling out. He only played 24 minutes, and I'm sure if he stayed out of foul trouble and played more minutes, like the rest of the starters, his impact would have been greater. Charlie Moore would have to step up with one of the best players on the Miami roster in foul trouble, and he would, dropping 16 points with 5 assists and 4 steals. But nothing more important than his 2 clutch free throws at the end of the game to secure his team the win 68-66 after an insane comeback attempt late, mainly led by Drew Peterson of the USC Trojans. Miami was headed to the second round of the NCAA men's tournament for the first time since the 2015-2016 college basketball season, which back in 2015-2016, the Hurricanes would go on a run making it all the way to the Sweet 16. Could this be the year they surpassed the Sweet 16 and make it the farthest ever in program history up to that point? Well, it was possible for sure, but unlikely. The 10th-seeded Hurricanes would have to take down one of the teams favored to win it all, the 2nd-seeded Auburn Tigers. The Hurricanes were 7.5-point dogs to the Tigers, which at this point in the season wasn't really anything new. Miami had already been disrespected a lot this year, 1 with them not ever being ranked, and 2 their incredibly high seeding. Once again, the Miami Hurricanes were playing with nothing to lose and everything to gain. A loss here and they'd be headed back home where the weather is beautiful and the women even more. A win, and they'd be headed to Chicago with the chance to take down Iowa State and advance to the Elite Eight, something that Miami has never done in program history up to that point. Would the rest of March be spent in the sun or in the cold?
And it belongs to the Tigers. Rap to get it started. And that Bill Russell, by the way. That's a great... Oh, look out! How about that one? Wise. Leading scorer a year ago, out with an Achilles injury in the first 11 games. Wong, turnaround for... There you go.
Good shot, though.
Tap right back to him. And Williams at the shoot. That's Jasper.
Got it.
Beautiful jump.
Team plays loose. And they get after you on this end of the floor. Williams. How about that?
It was a 9-point deficit.
Look, they got Smith inside now.
Green with a little hook shot. There's Wong now on the attack. Oh, my goodness. Drive in. And again, Miami scrapping underneath.
Almost hurt. He got in the mouth.
Leading.
Wong off the glass. Comes outside to Moore.
Nice give.
Up ahead to Wong. And Miami back in front by 12.
Basket like Miami.
McGusty
Like this.
shooting.
Like that.
Wow, big time move, buddy.
Nobody underneath.
Wardenberg. Cook. It's the last shot off. And we have
Man defense. You see Miami has the court spread. There's nobody anywhere close to the basket.
It's a three from outside. McGusty with this aggressive defense by Miami. Kalsher fought three across the lane and up and in and got the two. Actually, 7-zip. Wardenberg, three. Book it.
You were called for it, right? The men that really put their heart and soul into this program.
Kalsher, three.
Yes.
Efficiency with their defensive game, 20th in points allowed, but inside Jordan Miller's Iowa State with a drive by Brockington, takes it in hard.
Their first two games of this tournament.
It's Hunter. Kalsher into Wong. Step back, 15-footer, perfect.
Iowa State, after that timeout, went back to the man-to-man.
Three, McGusty, got it! Got it! Sure. Takes it hard through the circle, puts on the brakes. What a shot!
16 from downtown for Iowa State.
Wardenberg, three, got it!
Have to buy into the system and the coaching staff. Block shot there by Wardenberg.
Picked up by Moore, ahead McGusty, he'll take it in, sliding lead 8 ever, and a date with the top seed Jayhawks on Sunday.
This is why I love March Madness. No matter the team or seeding, anyone can get hot, and once they do, anything can happen in the NCAA men's basketball tourney. And just like many teams before them, the 10th-seeded Hurricanes were playing some of their best basketball of the season at the perfect time in March. Miami would take down the second-seeded Auburn Tigers in the second round 79-61. This game would be close in the first half as Miami would go into halftime only up by 1 point, 33-32. The second half would be a completely different story, as the Miami Hurricanes would dominate the game from the start of the second until the final buzzer would sound. How'd they do it? Well, like a lot of the big games they had won this season, the Hurricanes would play solid aggressive defense, holding the Tigers to 30% from the field and 19% from the three-point line, while also forcing 13 turnovers to the Hurricanes' 4. Miami's ability to force turnovers, while also not turning the ball over much themselves, really helped make up for their lack of size, because they'd be out-rebounded by Auburn, but them not giving away extra possessions through giving the ball away really helped negate the size advantage. Oh yeah, and I can't forget about Miami's stud guards, who were as consistent as they came, with Isaiah Wong dropping a game-high 21 points and Cameron McGusty with 20 buckets of his own. After taking down the second-seeded Auburn Tigers, Miami would be traveling to the Windy City to match up with another team on a surprising run, the 11th-seeded Iowa State Cyclones, in the Sweet 16, for a chance to make their first Elite Eight in program history. It can get cold in Chicago, but I don't think even that could affect the red-hot Miami Hurricanes, as after spanking the Auburn Tigers, they do pretty much the exact same thing to the Cyclones, winning 70-56. Iowa State would hold on, putting up a good fight, trying to claw their way back into the game, but once the Hurricanes went up in the second half and started to stretch their lead, it seemed like every time the Cyclones would get within striking distance, the Hurricanes would respond with 2 or 3 buckets of their own, killing any confidence Iowa State had in coming back into this ball game. Once again, defense, 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 and more defense. Miami held Iowa State to 37% from the field and 18% from the three-point line. And you already know the Hurricanes were stealing cookies like Po from Kung Fu Panda, forcing 18 turnovers. I've been marveling at the Hurricanes defense all video, but I think my favorite stat from the defensive side of the ball this game was that Iowa State only shot 4 free throws the entire match. When you can force as many turnovers as the Hurricanes were doing while not sending the opposing team to the free throw line much, it's going to be hard for teams to stop you. The 2021/2022 Miami Hurricanes had taken down Iowa State, punching their ticket to their first Elite Eight in program history, where they would be matching up with one of the blue bloods of college basketball and a team favored to win it all in March Madness, the first-seeded Kansas Jayhawks. Being an underdog wasn't anything new to the Canes. Sitting at 5.5-point dogs against the Jayhawks, this Elite Eight matchup was a battle of the old dominant powerhouse in Kansas who had already made the Final Four 15 times before this game versus a new upstart college basketball program in the Miami Hurricanes, a team who had just recently made their first Elite Eight, never mind the Final Four. Miami and Kansas, a true David versus Goliath matchup. Would the little guys win like most fairy tales?
It's Miami, it's Kansas from Chicago for the right to go to the Final Four. And away we go from the Windy City.
Is going to have to control the pace for these Canes.
Wong looking to cross over. Swerving down the lane, a nice two scoop it. In the ACC, Wong dancing with Wilson. Wow, a nice three-out shot.
And Wernberg, he's down. He's got to get up and go.
Slashing is Harris into McCormick.
Well, got a wide open shot, just didn't make it.
McGusty. He'll load up from 15. And backpedaling. Martin collecting. He'll go the other way. Lickety split 20-footer.
Wow.
Intercepted by Wilson. Picked up by Brown. The other way, Harris. Here comes McCormick.
Sometimes you're open for a reason.
Brown. Ring it up. Pickpocketed Wilson. Joseph. McGusty.
And he has to be.
Wilson, right foot. They blitz him. Doesn't matter.
Showed why they are a #1 seed.
Kansas Jayhawks are going to the Final Four for the 16th time in their 50th NCAA Tournament.
The magical March Madness run for the Miami Hurricanes would come to an end in the Elite Eight, losing to the first-seeded Kansas Jayhawks 76-50. The script was completely flipped for Miami versus Kansas, as their defense, which had been pretty locked down all tourney, wouldn't be able to contain this Jayhawks offense, as they would shoot 50% from the field. And for the first time all tournament, Miami would lose a turnover battle. It wasn't just a turnover battle Miami lost, also having a hard time putting the ball in the basket, shooting 35% from the field. With Miami not shooting well and losing the turnover battle, their lack of size really showed during this match, with Kansas out-rebounding the Canes by 13 boards. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together. The Hurricanes were not able to play the style of ball that got them this far, and unfortunately after running into a real championship contender, Miami got exposed with all of their flaws being exploited to the fullest, resulting in a blowout loss. Now before we move on to the next entry in this video, let's end this section on a positive note. The 2021/22 Miami Hurricanes have went on their deepest March Madness run in program history, making it to the Elite Eight, doing it as a 10th seed. Regardless of how they lost, the run they went on was still incredible and something I don't think Miami basketball fans will ever forget. Well, they might have forgot about it because the following year the Canes would won up their 2021/22 season, making it all the way to the Final Four. But that's a video for another day. Leaving the state of Florida, we head up to North Carolina to cover the next team up in this video, the 2007/2008 Davidson Wildcats. Now for those who don't know, as a kid I played 2 sports pretty competitively growing up, hockey and basketball, with basketball being my favorite of the 2 to play. I say play because my favorite sport to watch has always been and will always be football. Anyway, as a kid, I attended a lot of basketball camps, especially during the summer. And I remember around that time, Steph Curry had really started to blow up, and his clips from his March Madness run were going viral all over again. Long story short, we'd watch his highlights on the projector screen during lunch, and to say the least, seeing a skinny dude with a baby face moving around the court like he was awe-inspiring. That's pretty much just a long-winded way of me saying I've wanted to take a look at this season from Davidson and Steph Curry for a while now, because I know what Curry did, but I'd be lying if I said I knew anything about this team before taking a deeper look. So let's take a deeper look. Coming into the 2007/2008 college basketball season, the Davidson Wildcats were in a surprisingly good spot, at least for their program standards. I say that because in the past 2 seasons, the Wildcats had won the Southern Conference tourney, which no disrespect to the diehard Southern Conference fans, but in this conference, if you want to make the NCAA tournament, you more likely than not need to win the conference title, which Davidson did. The 2006/2007 season specifically for Davidson was a historical one, as they would win 29 games, which still to this day is tied for the program record for their most wins in a single season. Do you know what other season Davidson had 29 wins in? The one we're covering today. The Davidson Wildcats would enter the 2007 season with another March Madness berth at the forefront of their minds, and the only way to do that would be to win the Southern Conference for a 3rd year in a row. I cannot stress enough how important it was for them to win the conference title. For example, in only the next season, Davidson would win 26 games, losing their conference tourney and be excluded from the NCAA tournament. So if they wanted a tourney berth, they had to handle business, which I'm sure they expected to do. But they were not alone in those expectations, as Davidson would be the overwhelming favorites to win the Southern Conference this season. With that short intro out of the way, let's take a look at some of the key figures who made this incredible run in March Madness possible. Leading the program in his 19th year up to that point, the best head coach in Davidson basketball history, Bob McKillop. He would coach the Wildcats for a total of 33 seasons, which is just amazing, doing something you love for that long. And I also find it really cool that his son Matt McKillop took over right after he retired and is the current coach of Davidson right now. Moving over to the guards, this team had 3 impact players at that position who contributed to this team's success, starting with Max Paulus Gozolin, averaging 3 and 3, Jason Richards, who finished the season averaging 12.7 points, 3.1 rebounds with an impressive 8.1 assists per game, which would lead the entire country. Out of all the videos I've ever done, I don't think I've ever seen a player average that many assists. And finally, to round out the guards, the player who I'm sure's name you've been waiting to hear, Steph Curry, averaging a nasty 25.9 points per game with nearly 5 boards and 2.9 assists. Those 25.9 points would be enough to lead his entire conference. Sliding over to the big man, their dude drumming the paint on this ball club would be forwards Thomas Sander, averaging 7, 4, and 1, and forward Andrew Lovedale, averaging 6.8 and 5. Davidson would start the 2007/2008 college basketball season with a nice blowout win against Emory to put their record on the season so far at 1-0. That first game of the season was just a little teaser for what was to come, as right after that pretty easy win, Davidson would be facing off against the number 1 team in the country, the North Carolina Tar Heels, in a neutral site game hosted in Charlotte, North Carolina. If Davidson wanted to make a deep run in March Madness, they were going to have to be able to compete with the big dogs of college basketball. And this game against the number 1 team in the country should give them and us an idea of if they could compete this season.
Expected to sell every seat prior to game time. Mike Wood, Zelton Steed, Gary Maxwell, the officials. And Carolina in the blue won the tip, and then right to Ginyard with the first.
He's going to read screens. They've really done some nice stuff for him, too.
Andrew Lovedale has also come off the bench. Marksman is in, number 24. There he is.
Plenty of room to work.
Meno not afraid of Hansbrough. Last year than Curry's 21.5 per game, and Curry made 122 threes, an NCAA freshman record. He has one here tonight with North Carolina.
He's on Broadway. Is that what he told you?
Yes. He's a native New Yorker. Likes to make a lot of...
He's an old Alabama statement.
You know, you're always in trouble when you got to talk to a guy about how to catch it.
Curry from the floor for 10 points with the ball now.
A little 1-3-1 look here.
Fraser for 3.
Yes. Boy, North Carolina's big guys, Hansbrough, Thompson, they've got to do a better job of handling these double teams. That's 6 points on easy plays, the catches, the layups, the dunks.
And Green's 3 spun out. That had the feel of a major momentum shift.
But a crossover.
Curry all the way to the bucket. 8 for Lovedale. Meanwhile, Carolina's 1 out of 11 from the floor in this half. Green, a nice spin. Stephen Curry with Marcus Ginyard defending. Another nice slip to the bucket by Lawson. Tight defense on Richards. Curry for 3. Bumped by the chest of Lawson. Turns the corner with Lawson right on him. And the putback goes. It's in to play it in after the North Carolina timeout. Nice.
Another month and a half.
Sander made 1 out of 2 to account for the final margin.
Surprisingly, Davidson would almost pull off the win against the number 1 team in the country, coming up just short, losing 72-68. I know nobody likes to lose, but if anything, their loss to the North Carolina Tar Heels was an excellent loss. The Tar Heels were filled with NBA talent, having 5 players on their roster who get a taste of NBA ball, and even with that big of a talent advantage, the Wildcats were still in this ballgame the entire game. Steph Curry had a game-high 24 points, although versus North Carolina, I wouldn't say his shot was exactly falling, as he'd go 2 of 12 from the three-point line and shoot well below 50% from the field. Definitely one of his more inefficient games of the year, but it is to be expected. North Carolina was focused on Steph Curry the entire game, making sure every shot he took was extremely difficult. So hopefully Curry could learn from this game and apply it later on down the season, because if the Wildcats were going to make a deep run in March Madness, it would have to be because of Steph Curry, and other teams knew that, so he'd have to get used to being the main focus for the opposition on a night-in and night-out basis. After the loss to North Carolina, Davidson would somewhat struggle through the rest of the non-conference, sitting with an ugly record of 4-6 before entering the bulk of Southern Conference play. Not a pretty start to the season whatsoever for the Wildcats, and at this point about a quarter through the regular season, if Davidson wanted to have any chance of making the NCAA Tournament, they'd have to turn things around, and immediately. Every video I make needs to have just a little bit of suspense, but in all reality, after starting the season under 500 with a record of 4-6, Davidson would take their play to another level entering conference play, winning, get ready for this, 19 straight games. And it wasn't like they were winning close games. Davidson would dominate their Southern Conference schedule with a good majority of their conference games resulting in double-digit wins. After railing off 19 straight wins, the Davidson Wildcats would be sitting with a record on the season at 23-6, getting ready to enter the Southern Conference tourney as the obvious 1 seed. Now, while the Wildcats had won 19 straight games and were currently ranked as the 25th best team in the country, I'm not 100% sure that Davidson would be a lock for the NCAA Tournament, regardless of how good they had been playing as of late. So in situations like this, it's better to be safe than sorry. I tried to find some of Davidson's highlights from the conference tourney, but all the footage I could find looked like it had got stampeded over by a herd of moose. So long story short, the Wildcats would blow out every team they faced in the Southern Conference tourney, winning 82-49 against Wofford, 82-52 against UNC Greensboro, and finally to win the conference tournament, a 65-49 win against Elon. The Davidson Wildcats had won the Southern Conference for the third time in a row, and for their incredible play throughout the regular season, they would be rewarded with the 10th seed, their highest seeding for March Madness ever up to that point. Davidson's first game of the NCAA Tournament wouldn't be too far from home, as they would be matching up versus 7th-seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs in Raleigh, North Carolina. It had been about 25 plus years since the Wildcats had won an NCAA Tournament game, and with a 7th-seeded Gonzaga basketball team who has been there and done that before, standing in their way from advancing to the next round, Curry was going to need to have a huge game. Could him and the Davidson Wildcats do the unlikely and start off March with a bracket-busting performance?
Really better athletes than you'd expect from two schools, although Gonzaga's had a tremendous record over a long number of years. Tom McKillop has put together the 6 of top teams this year, right to the wire. North Carolina, Duke, UCLA. Good cut. Converts the pass from what you would expect. Setting some solid screens here. Baseline shot drops for the players that have guarded it. Jump ball back to the Bulldogs. Jones gets it back. That was a pretty good tap out. Richard sits down with the 2 fouls. He only had 48 fouls. Look at that. Richards with the 2 fouls. Skip it over to Gray. Quickly taps it over. Day hits the 3. The winner of Georgetown and UMBC, which will be next up on this floor in Raleigh. Gray back on Curry. Double down on somebody as hot as Gray has been. 18 points for Gray, ties a career high. This has come in and scored right before the end of the first half. 8 on the shot clock. Archambault defending on both of them. That baseline with advantage. Okay, Morgan does a nice job with those pump fakes. He moves the ball, he moves his head, he moves his eyes. Tough to defend. Some space. He shoots right past the defender. Shot as can be. That's right. Wisconsin. Sit down. Try. Kicks it forward. The shot clock. Keeps it in his hand so he gets fouled. And he'll have it.
Sheesh. Wardell, Stephen Curry, and the rest of the Davidson Wildcats would put on one hell of a performance versus the Gonzaga Bulldogs, winning their first NCAA tournament game in a long time, 82-76. I have to give a huge shout out to the entire coaching staff, because there was a point about 5 minutes into the second half when Gonzaga looked like they were starting to pull away. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen teams just lose control of a game when their opponent starts to pull away. So I find it very impressive that coach, Bob McKillop, was able to keep his troops composed even though they were facing a double-digit deficit. Oh yeah, and I can't forget about the Wildcat players who all contributed to this big win, all in very different ways. Like Andrew Lovedale, who had a double-double with a game high of 13 rebounds, or guard Jason Richards, who almost had his own double-double, dropping 15 points with 9 assists. And finally, you all knew it was coming, but of course Steph Curry, who went berserk, no Casca, for 40 points, shooting 14 of 22 from the field. And get this, Curry would go 8 of 10 from the three-point line. This dude shot 80% from the deep state, and it's not like his three-point shots were wide open either, a lot of them were off the dribble. Davidson was moving on to the next round of March Madness for the first time since all the way back in 1968, which back in 1968, the Wildcats would make it all the way to the Elite Eight, so maybe that was an omen of things to come. Well, I'm pretty sure that's how Davidson saw it. I know for a fact their next opponent holding them back from the Sweet 16, the second-seeded Georgetown Hoyas, didn't see it like that at all. As a matter of fact, the wider college basketball world didn't see it like that either, as coming into this game, Davidson would be about 7.5-point dogs to the second-seeded Hoyas. But that's just usually how things are when you're a smaller school playing against the big boys in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. 10th-seeded Davidson versus second-seeded Georgetown, with the trip to the Motor City on the line.
Hibbert to jump it up for Georgetown against Lovedale. A second tap that comes back to Richards of the Wildcats.
They've stormed back from 11 down in the second half Friday to knock out Gonzaga. Lovedale takes the open jumper.
Sanders' fault. Minnow should have been charging into the basket. He hit the basket.
Oh, Ewing drives, but
they went 16 years of a drought in the NCAA from that point until they finally got back in under Bob McKillop.
Now it's Sapp on Curry.
And you see that Rivers didn't leave him, so no matter where he goes, he's got some.
2004, his 40 points on Friday. And Sapp. All the way.
On target eyes than the guys guarding.
And Freeman has already hit one. Hits another. Seed in the Midwest. Curry puts it up and he has his first three of the game. Wallace followed him.
There's the pick and roll. They don't get the ball to Hibbert off it.
And Summers. Lovedale let him take rips. But leading by 14. Shooting over 70% and they hit again. Boyas, though, got three men back.
Look for Curry on the jump shot.
Here he is. Can he hit this one? And one! It could be the 4-point play. Upped it back to double digits. Georgetown got a bench warning before that timeout. Richards easily getting back. 6. Oh, reach in and stolen. They've got big numbers here. 4 on 2. Curry whips it inside. Lovedale easily again.
Richards and Curry used to playing right at 34 minutes a game. He'll make that one.
Best look of the day. They're high in the Big East tournament against Villanova. 22. Back is Curry with a 3. They'll bring him back. Coming off 40 points on Friday. What a nifty move. Little dip. What a stretch of action this has been. Texas escaping with a win as a 2 seed. Tennessee a 2 in trouble. Here's Curry. Oh my goodness. Another 3. Area. He thought about it. Curry dishes instead. 5 on the shot clock. They whip it over. Paulus Gossel in. No. On the floor, Summers has it. Georgetown's down 4.
Go for 2 here. You don't need the 3.
The drive in. Summers.
Smart. Get the 2.
It's right.
He's been quick to the basket.
Curry. No call. Into the arms of Stephen Curry and Hibbert fouls out. Shot up, Sapp. No. And talk about David and Goliath. I submit to you, Davidson College to the Sweet 16.
And the people in blue are cheering for a team in red, Jimmy.
Once again, the boys would prevail, taking down the second-seeded Georgetown Hoyas in a banger of a basketball game, 74-70. And just like the first matchup of the NCAA Tournament for Davidson, they would see themselves down by double digits. But this time, instead of it being 10 or 11 points, the Wildcats would be down to the Hoyas by as much as 17 at some points in this ball game. Coming back from that much once is amazing, but doing it twice in the same tourney, yeah, Davidson had been blessed by the basketball gods this March. And when you look at the box score of this game, you might think the same thing too. Georgetown would win nearly every battle, shooting a much higher 63% from the field compared to the Wildcats' 39%. They even outshot them from three-point land, with Georgetown shooting 56% compared to Davidson's 21%. How in the world did Davidson manage to pull off this win with such a low percentage compared to the Hoyas? Well, I think it came down to 3 key factors. 1. Free throws. Davidson would shoot 30 free throws and go 80% from the line. Now compare that to the Hoyas' 17 free throws shot, where they would go 47% from the stripe. 2. Turnovers. The Wildcats would only turn the ball over 5 times, while Georgetown turned it over 20 times. And 3, of course, Steph Curry. He started off a little slow, having 12 points with 9 minutes left to go in the game, but like he's done so many times in the current day, he'd take over the game in the final minutes, somehow finishing the game with 30. When the game was winding down, everyone knew where the ball was going, and yet Curry still managed to put the ball in the basket. And a lot of his shots were difficult and well contested, at least for your average shooter. Steph Curry is a whole nother beast, of course. With the huge win in the second round, Davidson would be advancing to the Sweet 16, taking a flight to Detroit for yet again another matchup versus a highly seeded team, the 31-4 third-seeded Wisconsin Badgers. Now, since this video is getting ready to push about 40 minutes plus already, we're going to speed by this game because Davidson would actually win this game by double digits, taking down Wisconsin 73-56. You already know Curry went crazy in this game, dropping 33 points, but the player who really stood out to me during the Sweet 16 matchup would be guard Jason Richards, finishing the game with a double-double, dropping 11 points with a crazy 13 assists. Jason Richards was definitely one of the unsung heroes on this basketball team. He played great defense and really ran this offense well. Alright, so Davidson was moving on to the Elite Eight, where things would not be getting any easier. After facing off against second-seeded Georgetown and third-seeded Wisconsin, it was only right that up next in the Wildcats' way was the first-seeded Kansas Jayhawks led by Mario Chalmers. What was at stake? Well, Davidson's first-ever Final Four berth and a trip to San Antonio. So far during this tournament, the Davidson Wildcats had been the team of destiny. But what happens when the team of destiny faces off against the favorites to win it all? Only one way to find out.
CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the Men's Basketball Championship is sponsored by DiGiorno, Bud Light, Fidelity Investments, and by Chevy.
25 in the second half. He is the son of Del Curry, former Virginia Tech standout. So here we go, Kansas, Davidson. And it's controlled by the Jayhawks.
Just as against Villanova, as close as his jersey is stuck to him.
Now Richards, 6 to shoot, inside left field. And Davidson is on the board by Jackson.
Jackson's come back into this ball game very attuned to playing defense.
And Rush gets the roll. Curry, quick release again. And finally he knocks one down. Chalmers turns the corner, steps back, and hits.
It's only the second one, but on shots like that, where you give Curry another chance at the basket, you're going to pay.
There's the runner inside.
Perpetual motion machine, Stephen Curry.
12 points for Curry, inside. Arthur spinning and winning. And Kansas up by 2. Sander, right hand up, counted on the foul.
Again, trying to bother Curry.
Backdoor Curry, got a good look. Knocks it down. And he hit. Lovedale driving. Sander hit one in the first half from the top of the key. Curry again. Oh!
They're in it to win it.
Now Rush fires again. This time it goes down. Now Rush again, splits it. Tough shot. Oh! And it counts. Terrific ball player, only a freshman Pac-10 player of the year. Barr, he hits it from deep. They can take the lead here. Curry thinking about firing. Lovedale, turnaround baseliner. Oh, and he hit it. Plus the foul.
Kansas.
Barr again from downtown. Oh! The White Lobster! His Kansas team, 10 points, had 4 at halftime. Now Curry, step back off the dribble. Count it! Big time. Chalmers. Kahn wants it inside. Steps out the screen. 20-footer, Collins.
Davidson with numbers, now it's time to run your sets.
Rush, skipping. Kahn keeps it up high, and knocks it down. Curry lets it go, and buries it! 54 seconds to play, timeout! 59! Hands it off to Chalmers, he curls, stops, Arthur, 5 to shoot, Collins, 3 to shoot, lets it go! Off the front rim, no! And with 16.8 to go, Davidson with life. 59 to 50.
Everybody knows that Stephen Curry's in the ball game, but don't forget Bryant Barr, who has been red hot.
Barr lines up in the corner on the baseline. Here's Curry. He may not give this up. Pick and roll. Curry, 6 to go. Frees himself. Curry, 4 to go. Pumps, kicks it out. Richard! And it's over. Kansas holds on. And the Jayhawks are heading to the Final Four.